Every day, things happen that change the way the world looks. Most days, it changes in subtle ways that go unnoticed. On other days, on more rare days, things happen that change it in dramatic, noticeable ways. Changes that turn the world upside down and make it so the world of yesterday doesn't even recognize the world of today. On June 2nd, 1993, a girl named Christi Liana was born. She was born to a fairly typical middle-class American family, but she was anything but fairly typical. Almost immediately, Christi showed signs of uniqueness and high intelligence. Before age 1, she was able to form sentences and solve difficult problems on her own. At 3 months old, she figured out how to open the baby-proof latch on her crib and move freely around the house when no one was paying attention, surprising her father one night when he found her in the living room watching TV on her own. Christi's parents quickly realized how special she was and knew she would grow up to do something incredible. They told little Christi that she was going to grow up and change the world. As Christi grew older and started school, she was almost immediately treated differently by her peers and teachers as they found her intelligence to be intimidating and freakish. Starting in kindergarten, she outgrew almost every grade in every school practically as soon as she started. Her teachers would tell her how incredible she was and that she was destined to change the world, and that she was too smart for their classroom and perhaps their grade in general. Christi would end up jumping around to a couple different schools until she finally found a program that could handle her intellect. Once situated in a school for gifted children like herself, she would carry out her education and obtain incredible achievements. As Christi flew through elementary school into high school and then college, she would graduate each stage of education multiple years ahead of the norm, acquiring an Ivy League undergraduate degree by 15 years old and a master's degree in computer science by 17. Throughout her education, she would do profound things far ahead of her age and was requested to appear on national TV several times for her accomplishments. It was inevitable to everyone that she would go on to do something incredible and change the world. While she was receiving her master's degree, Christi's father was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. Over the several months following the diagnosis, Christi watched her father wither down in pain. She had never felt so helpless and tormented. She wanted to help her father. She began to research and talk with professors in a desperate attempt to see if there was anything she could do in the small window of time she had. Her father died not long after the diagnosis, long before Christi could do anything. The pain she felt from her father's death would inevitably change the course of her future, the course of everyone's future. The cancer research and effort she made during her father's final months would ignite her career, guiding her decisions for how she would attempt to in fact change the world. She realized in this experience of pain, and more importantly, the pain she witnessed her father experience, she would do everything in her power to rid the world of such pain, to rid the world of disease, early death, and suffering altogether, to create a world that's an ideal utopic version of itself. She believed there was a future where this could exist. Having left her mark on so many important members of the Ivy League community during her time in school, as well as receiving substantial awards and achievements, Christi was sought out by leading research, tech, and software companies. Following graduation, she went on to work for several companies in the medical sector, and she soon found herself pursuing research and software development in the genetic engineering space, specifically in terms of removing viruses from patients with existing DNA sequence mutations, as well as encoding newborns with genes to have immunities to major diseases. At this time in history, this space was the next big wave in medical research and technology. Researchers and companies were racing to make the next big discovery and find safe, predictable ways to edit genetic code and alter people's biologies. However, at the time, Christi only had so much control over the decision-making in the companies she worked with, and felt that decisions were often made poorly and money and focus were often put on the wrong things. And so, in her late 20s, Christi decided she would start her own medical software company. Several years later, at age 32, in the year 2025, Christi and her company would develop software that could assist in safe, highly predictable genetic engineering. Christi would be responsible for creating an algorithm-driven simulation software that could accurately model, test, and predict the effects of specific DNA editing in specific individuals. What had previously been highly risky and complicated was now fully accessible. Genetic information could be mapped with extreme detail, and the effects of genetic modifications could be accurately predicted holistically generations into the future, ensuring that manipulations could be executed properly and safely. With this, genetic engineering could begin to permeate commonplace medical practice, disease treatment, and human childbearing. In a short time following, cancer and many other major diseases would be eradicated. Newborns would be encoded in ways so that all dispositions to physical ailments, disabilities, and diseases would be eliminated, as well as all dispositions to mental disorders. Following that, genetic engineering would begin to eliminate dispositions towards things like high-level violence, aggression, depression, and anxiety. During this time, there were massive worldwide debates regarding the regulations on what should be allowed to be manipulated, but with Christi's technology, agreements and systems could be made much more efficiently, and genetic engineering would soon become the norm. Not too long after the technology's implementation, Christi would be recognized publicly as one of the most intelligent and impactful members of modern humanity, and for many, of all of history. She was awarded the Nobel Prize as well as innumerable other awards, accolades, and social recognitions. She had the brilliance, the discipline, the virtuous social and moral intention, the patience, and the successful execution. She dedicated her life to this. She sacrificed her youth, her young adulthood, and her middle adulthood. She worked non-stop. She had no social life, and now she did it. She changed the world forever, just how she wanted to, just how she was told she was supposed to. 50 years later, the world had gone through about 2 generations with Christi's technology, and the world's illness and disease rates were at an all-time low. Mental health was at an all-time high. The average lifespan was rapidly increasing. People were being born with exceptional talents and physical complexions. Incredible things were happening. Peace and cooperation were blossoming across the planet in a way humanity had never seen. Christi was witnessing her impact unfold into a perfect utopic world, just as she had intended. 100 more years and 4 more generations would go by. It's the year 2177. Lifespans are into the hundreds and predicted to continue into the low thousands. Suicide rates are the highest ever in history. Having been encoded with specific traits and skills, people find it increasingly difficult to find any meaning in their lives, knowing they don't have much of a say in who they are or who they'll become. Being in good physical shape, having high intelligence, and achieving success are generally easy and aren't that impressive, so people feel a void of motivation in doing much of anything. Mostly everyone is diplomatic with each other, and conflict is almost inexistent, so the majority of people are fairly bored with nothing to talk about. There is very little risk of illness or early death, so no one really cares to appreciate what they have. Essentially, no one has any form of anxiety, OCD, ADD, high anger, sadness, or anything alike, so much of the arts lose their luster. Life is so perfect, it flatlines. And people are now soaking in this nothingness longer than the human brain has ever been equipped to deal with. Frantic, the world begins to crumble and people begin to search for ways to reverse the effects of genetic engineering. In her late hundreds now, Christi wonders how this could be. How she could have been so wrong. How could a perfect world be so imperfect? Christi was one of, if not the smartest and most virtuous, well-intended individuals to ever cross humanity. She dedicated her life to changing the world and making it a better place. An ideal utopic version of itself where health problems were a thing of the past, where pain and suffering were a thing of the past, where aging and early death were a thing of the past, and where peace, health, long life, and happiness could be a thing of the present and future. She thought she had done it. Everyone thought she had done it. And in essence, she did do it. But here she was witnessing the world collapse back in on itself. And in this moment, she realized what she had missed. Even in her success of removing everything that appeared to be conflict, the best she could really do was create new conflict. That nature always had the last say and had a funny way of making sure things stayed interesting. That perhaps no matter what she did or whoever would have inevitably done it after her, everything was to return to the same fundamental balance of good and bad, conflict and resolution, happiness and suffering. That the world upside down is really the same world, just at a different angle. In this moment, Christi understood. It was not that her efforts were a waste. She was the person for the job, and she did what she should have done, and she did everything right, except one thing. She missed the point.
Thank you for watching. If you found enjoyment and value in this video, please give it a thumbs up, share your thoughts in the comments below, and if you are not already, be sure to subscribe to our channel. We are constantly coming out with new videos to help you experience life with clarity and wonder.